carry on this conversation with me, our former President, Youth Council of Nigeria, also former Commissioner for Youth Political Participation, Pan-African Youth Union, and the former Chairman, National Youth Council of Nigeria, Kogi State Chapter. His name is Comrade Dele John, and he will be joining us shortly. Also with us in the studio, our biology teacher at Federal Government College Enugu, lead volunteer Chidinma Ibemere, Foundation 2022 Oxfam Nigeria Youth SDG Network Youth Spotlight Awardee and Project Officer, Wadi Ben-Hikri Foundation. Chidinma, welcome to Lens on Africa.
Thank you so much.
So I'm going to start with the big question. Who are youths and why should I care?
Okay, so according to the Nigerian definition, the youths are the young people between the ages of 15 and 29. And for a long time...
15 and 29?
Yes, that is our...
15 and 29?
15 according to Nigeria.
That's not good. So I'm not a youth.
But according to the African Youth Charter, youths are young people between 15 and 35.
Okay.
So you said, why should we care, right?
Yeah, why should we care?
Over time, we've heard this adage that says that youths are the life wire of any organization.
Yeah.
And I feel that with the population of youths we have in Nigeria, the tomorrow we deserve can only be achieved if we incorporate the youth blood in it. So it's important that you care for the youths because there's really no future without us in it. And I'm excited about this year's conversation, which is international solidarity, because there's the call for, over time we've had issues where people make decisions for the youths without the youths being involved. But this time around, we're saying we need a collaborative effort. Yeah. We no longer want anything for the youths without the youths. It doesn't make sense.
Nothing for the youths without the youths. That sounds interesting.
You can't do something for me without adding me on the table or on the decision-making table. So I'm so excited that the United Nations has come up with this whole idea to integrate people of all ages in ensuring that we achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030.
This sounds very nice. You're really into this, aren't you?
I am.
All right, Mr. Oladele John, who's also the Vice President, Pan-African Youth Organization. What is your take on this? I just asked that a question. I'd like to ask you the same question. Who are youths and why should I care?
Actually, she's correct. Good day, Nigerians. A youth.
It's an African show.
Good day, Africa, actually. A youth is actually by the current national youth policy of the Nigeria being supervised by Ministry of Youth. A youth is someone between the ages of 15 and 29, like he stated. But the African Youth Charter actually defines a youth as someone between the ages of 18 and 35. Okay. While the United Nations defines a youth as someone between the ages of 15 and 29. Okay. So, but for us in Nigeria, we worked by the definition of the African youth. For us in Africa, we work by the African Youth Charter, which defines a youth as someone between the ages of 18 and 35. So a youth is that young, vibrant, resilient. A youth is that girl, that guy who is still active and still very much on the field. Like you are aware, in the continent of Africa, Africa is judged as a youthful continent because over 75% of our demography are young people in the continent of Africa. And that is why when you look at the continent generally, the African continent is one of the best because the youth's strength has actually not been fully tapped. But we are hoping that in line with the AU Agenda 2063 and the laudable programs of the African Union, we will be able to fully tap the potential of the African youth.
All right, I'm going to take up something he said. I'm going to be a little hardballed on this one. He says we're going to be able to tap into the potential of the African youth. I say we've been talking about tapping into the potential of the African youth for a long time. Leaders of tomorrow, African youth this year, next year, since I was a child and now I'm no longer a youth. So why don't we just move on to something else and, leave this whole youth business? We don't seem to be making progress.
In as much as we have not gotten the desired results we want, we can't give up now.
And why is that?
Because everybody deserves a fighting chance at life. And I feel like as youths, you can't keep telling us that we are the leaders of tomorrow. And when we take responsibility, you know, we decide that this story you're telling us about us being the leaders of tomorrow is actually not our privilege, it's our right. You get angry about it. And I feel now the youths of today, we're trying to change the narratives. We're not like youths like you, sorry.
All right, go ahead.
We are youths that we are aware, and you know, knowledge is power, knowledge is gold. If you understand that this tomorrow we're talking about is, yesterday we said we are the leaders of tomorrow, and today is already that tomorrow. You take action regardless of the circumstances that may try to hold you back. If we want the Nigeria we deserve, I feel youth should be at the forefront of taking up responsibility. I'm going to talk about the ASU strike, right? I mean, I think it was Nelson Mandela who said that education is the bedrock of development for any nation. And today is like day 191 or thereabout, day 181 or thereabouts of the ASU strike. And then if youths now go to the streets to protest to say, please, we are tired of this whole story. You can't keep treating us this way. You want the Nigeria you want. Look at people in the demographics of 70 to 90. They are not active. And then those of us who are active, we're at home because we can't go to school. So equip ourselves with the right knowledge. So if we keep saying, okay, let's not do anything, we will be the ones to bear the brunt at the end of the day. And remember, we are going to give birth to children who will still continue that cycle. And that is something we don't want to
Fantastic.
We
Let's
don't want
pause
that
there. Mr. Oladile John, let's get back to you. Now, African society generally, from what you said, the African Charter is different. For international, it's 15 to 29. Those are youths. In Africa, it's 18 or 19, 18 to 35. There's a huge difference. You don't become a youth early enough and you're still a youth much older. It seems as if there's a big cultural shift there. We're not catching up with the rest of the world. Now, vis-a-vis the development strides that Africa needs to make, what can be done to ensure that the African young person or the African youth is able to be at par with his colleague in the US or Germany? For example, someone who is 15 is still looked at as a child here in Africa, and by 15 he's a young adult, he's a youth there, and he can do a lot more things. What can be done? How can we change this narrative here in Africa?
Thank you very much. I think looking at it globally and even taking the African continent into consideration, you look at the cultural difference between Africa and other parts of the world. For those in Africa, what are the school age period? And what are the school age period for those in the other part of the world? She's talking briefly about ASU strike. In those parts of the world, if we are going to work by the United Nations Charter of definition of a youth, that is between the ages of 15 and 29, in the African continent, most of those people within that age group are either still in secondary school or still struggling to gain admission into the university. So these are some of the deficiencies that we have. But however, we are not even just looking at the age. We are looking at the productivity of the people that we are bringing out. We are looking at the capacity of the people that we are bringing out. How are we, as African youths, competing favorably with youth in Europe, Asia, and other parts of the world? And I must say that the youths of Africa are not doing badly. When you look at even the United States, you look at even some other European countries, most of those who are driving even their economy behind the scene are the African youths. We are talking about the doctors in Canada, in United States, in UK. Most of those who are in the engineering sector are mostly Africans. I can take a good cue at Nigeria.
Yeah, I agree with you totally, but my question is, how do we change the narrative back home? We know what our young people can do, we see what they're doing overseas, but here you have in African continent, you have older leadership who believe you guys are still little children. Would you just sit down and not talk when the elders are talking? How do we change this narrative? Because we have older people who are in many regards tired, and they need younger energy, they need people who see the world differently to be able to take modern challenges. How do we approach this problem?
It's purely governance. We must change the governance structure of the African continent. We must change the governing structure of the member states. Looking at the continent generally, you see that this monarchical system of government still seems to be the practice. You see a situation whereby the older ones are not willing to bequeath power to the younger ones compared to the other parts of the world. But for us in Africa, particularly with the African youth, we came up with a campaign in sensitizing the African youth on the need to get involved in governance. Enough of just sitting on social media, enough of the protests, enough of the complaints. We must begin to get involved. And getting involved in the governing structure, we've understood that the crop of leaders we have in the continent are not going to willingly hand over powers to the young ones. So it is imperative for us to begin to get involved right from the political party structure. And that is why even as we move into the 2023 here in Nigeria, we are looking at a shift from what used to be. You see more youth consciousness, you see more youths talking about who are the candidates. You see people, unfortunately, looking at the three major parties now, that is the Labour Party, the APC, and no, I'm just looking at them generally. You see the candidates are actually people who are of older generation, who are of the I will call those who are in the departure lounge of their stay. But these are the things we need to change generally, and that is why even in some African countries, coup d'etat is still part of the thing that is reigning, because the young people are actually put behind the back seat. The young people are actually more of the passenger than the driver's seat of the continent. But this narrative must change, and we must catch up with the rest of the world. The youth must come to the governance table. The youth must be fully involved.
I see you're eager. Let's hear you.
In addition to what he said, I feel what is important, because you raised the idea that, you know, the older generation feel we are young and why should they give us opportunities?
It's an African thing, culturally speaking.
But I mean, I'm grateful that this is an international platform. So I just want to put it out here that to our elderly uncles and aunties, the older generation, please, it's about collaboration. It's not competition. I mean, we need ourselves to achieve what we want. There is no, I don't feel it would be wise for us to have a world where there are no old people.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because typically, I mean, in typical African society where the younger people are pushing for more say, the old feel you are foolish young people, and the young feel you are just foolish old people who are outdated. So what do we do? You were talking about collaboration. It's collaboration.
It's not competition. I'm not trying to displace your wisdom as an old person, and you're not trying to oppress me because I am young. What is important is that if you bring your ideas, I mean, like it would even make sense for an elderly person to be behind the scenes, guiding the younger person to achieve the desired goal, isn't it? So a situation where the older person feels that this is, it is my inheritance, I feel that is so disrespectful to everyone. We need ourselves. Young people need the old people. Older people need the younger people. The most important thing is that values are put on the table. That is one. And secondly, we are achieving the desired goals. And for me, I feel like the desired goals, we're not even asking for too much. It is just what is the basics. Healthcare, right? If you know that you don't have the skills to drive the health system, why would you want to remain there? Why not give opportunities to people who have been trained? Or
maybe your expectations are too high. Have I thought about that?
No. My expectations are not too high, because I mean, like, education is basic now, right? Education is the right of everybody. So but the situation in Nigeria is that it has been presented to us as a privilege. So only people who have certain amount of money are capable of going to school. Now think about the population of youths whose parents do not have access to private universities, and then their only hope is the federal school. And now school has been on strike. Like I was saying yesterday, that there are so many people that are affected by the strike action. Think about people who feed because, I mean, their businesses are on school premises. Think about parents who have to deal with, you know, adding more money. The dollar rates, again, everything is going up. So there's every possibility that even if the strike action is called off by tomorrow, the price of rents of the last time will definitely not be, because everybody wants. Exactly. So it's complicated. There's an intersection of issues here, and we have to deal with it.
Okay. This is a mouthful. I was going to say before this, and maybe I should just still push. You were talking about building a world, creating a world for all ages. How is this going to happen? Consider the impatience of youth and the arrogance and the condescending nature of elderly. How are you going to make this work?
I think this is one of the very important things the team for this year's International Youth Day seeks to address. That is intergenerational collaboration. You know, we are just coming out of, this is the third year after the COVID-19 pandemic. So it is obvious that it's not just all up to the elderly, neither is it all up to the youths to build a better world. The collaboration is very much needed. And like you have said, most of what's the problem and challenges we've had in the past is actually this mentorship problem. There's been a huge gap between the old and the young. They've not been these mentorship processes, and this we must begin to bridge this gap. I also believe that the African youth has all the potentials it's needed. The major problem we have is the environment, the political will, and the environment created by our leaders.
Now I'm going to ask you this question exactly about that environment. We've talked about what we need to do is change in the political structure across Africa to ensure that younger, more vibrant, more energetic, forward-thinking people are in government. Now, the young people generally are impatient. Old people will sit down for 4 hours, 6 hours. I've voted for the past number of elections, and sometimes would have to, you see people take food there, older people. The young people can't stay so long. It's too boring. Why do I stay in the line for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours before I cast my vote, wait for the vote to be counted and all of that? How are you going to make this work with young people so impatient?
I don't think maybe arguing the fact that it's not necessary for us to stand on the queue for over 5 hours is a problem, because I mean, like, we're in the digital world. This is 21st century. Why should we still go on with our voting system, the usual?
But you're not yet the one in power. You do not yet design the voting system.
Now, this is the thing. This is the story. The story I would like to share here is this. I know that the whole idea about youth being impatient has been like a slogan over the years, but I feel strongly that the youth of now, especially since the pandemic from 2020 October,
they've learned to sit in a place.
Up to now, you've seen youths who are not waiting for you to give them a seat at the table. They come with their seats. They're not even, don't worry, since you don't want, we have our chairs, we are bringing it to the table. And that is so amazing. What I want to use this opportunity to share with all the youths is this. Yes, it may be very difficult based on our cultural context here in Africa and Nigeria to, have our elderly ones give us that free space to operate. But trust me, when they see that you bring value to the table, it's easier. Nobody wants to mentor somebody who has nothing to offer.
Yeah.
It would not be nice for me to always be at the giving end when there's nothing for me to receive from you.
Okay, so we're gonna take it that we just have about a minute. So what we're gonna do with that minute each is so we can round up. So, Mr. Oladele John, I'd like you to look at your camera and talk to Africans, the youth and the elderly alike, in about 30 seconds or so.
I will start with the elderly. We must understand that you were once a youth. And it is very important for you to know that you have to create that space on the table. And for the Nigerian youth or for the African youth in general, it is important that we take advantage of every opportunity that we have. And also having at the back of our mind that the leaders will not willingly leave the seat, will not quit the stage until we rise to taking the baton from them. And we must also be prepared. Leadership is not just about age. I must be frank, but we must be prepared. And to a large extent, the African youth are doing their best to prepare themselves for the leadership role. The major challenge is having that change of leadership, such that the leader sees the opportunity to say, "Oh, let me relax. Let's see what you as the African youth can do, while we give you the mentorship from the back seat."
Fantastic. Chidinma, it's about your turn, so we would like you to say your own words.
I just have one important information to share. So I gained admission in 2009, but I couldn't go to school because of the strike action. And being a teacher at Federal Government College Enugu, it is heartbreaking that over 10 years down the line, my students who graduated last year and have gained admission have not been able to go back to school because of the strike action. So I'm using this platform. I know I'm speaking on behalf of the Nigerian youth. I'm appealing to the federal government of Nigeria. I'm appealing to ASU. Please, please, it will be nice for you to reach a negotiation or just get to a meeting point. Nigerian students are suffering. We need the strike action to be called off as soon as possible. That is my story. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chidinma. Tthank you, Mr. Oladele John. It's been a pleasure having two of you here.
Thank you,
Unfortunately, we don't seem to have enough time. Time is not a friend, but we'll hopefully have you back same time, well, before the same time next year.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone. Thank you.
All right.